Hello and welcome to ChinnyVision. This time we're off karting. Yes, before Mario Kart was a twinkle in Nintendo's eye, the kind of first big karting game that I certainly can think of was Powerdrift, which came out in 1988 in the arcades. Probably hit the arcades in 89 in the UK, to be fair, from Sega. It has this curious tilting thing going on when you go around the corners. The courses are very much like roller coasters and the screen tilts as you go around it. Very graphically impressive when you saw this in the arcade. Activision picked up the home licenses and we're going to start off on the 16-bit versions for a change. And if we're going to do the 16-bit versions first, let's start off on the Atari ST. Now, of course, this is going to have to be cut down from the arcade version because the arcade machine was very, very powerful. It'll be interesting to see how much they've had to cut out. Nice intro showing you all the characters. There are multiple characters you can play in the game and 5 sets of courses to race through as well. So plenty of variety. There's linear way through the game, but you've got a set of 5 courses to choose from. You've got the option of a mouse control as well. A lot of these early 16-bit games had the option of mouse control, but I'm opting for joystick. Selected my player and selected my level. And
3, 2, 1, go!
Sampled speech to start the game. And off we go. And yes, the frame rate is much, much choppier than the arcade. You've got this roller coaster section. There's no tilting or anything like that. Frame rate is fairly choppy. Some nice sampled speech though. It's taken off. This is not my first go on this. I've played this a fair few times, and I'll just show one of the other levels as well because it is a little bit fiddly and you have to get your joystick sensitivity settings exactly right or it's just incredibly hard. And where all the characters are in the game are shown at the top, so I'm currently first, so you can see me highlighted at the top. That's really nice. That's a personal touch. The game dropping back to 4th, and it is a little bit fiddly to play because of that choppy frame rate. And the game does seem to pause when it plays the sampled speech as well. On some of these levels you can't actually crash off the side, you just slow down. This level you can't actually crash your kart, you just kind of, as I say, you slow down. And that's handy on some of these levels because you crash off this and obviously you're not going to be getting back into the game in a hurry. There's only, I think, 4 laps on each course. The game's over fairly quickly, taking about a minute per lap. So this isn't a game that you can be playing for a long time. It is an arcade game, of course, designed to be a coin guzzler and not for longevity on the home systems. I'm 5th, and you need to finish 3rd or better to progress, so no, that's it for me. 4 laps, sorry, it does tell you down the bottom right hand side of the screen, 4 laps per race, but you do get continues. So over to the Amiga, and we do have the crushed up screen that you sometimes get with games that have been ported over from the ST, so lots of a black bar down the bottom, but you do get music when the game plays and it is a bit smoother and faster. Now, although I'm not sure if that's because I'm playing it on an A1200. So around that first lap already, you can see how quickly the laps go by. You have to memorise these courses as well. There's very little warning as to what the corners are coming up. It tells you when you get there, but there's no warning a corner is actually coming. And round we go again. There you go, that only took 30-something seconds to do that lap, so not even a minute as I was saying earlier. Getting past some of the other drivers is sometimes more luck than skill. If you watch your character as well and driving, he will make little gestures to the other players when you pass them, or if they pass you. Still, we're still in third. Oh, and I've crashed off there. And this is one of the levels where you can crash. Can I get to that finish line? Just got there. There are 5 levels on each stage, so it's basically 5 of these races and come third or better to finish the game. Certainly in the arcade, if you finish all 5 races and come first in all of them, then you will either get a bonus level which lets you play driving the aeroplane from Afterburner or the motorbike from Hang On. So I'm not sure if that translates through to the home versions. One thing I've noticed on the Amiga version is a little bit of slowdown sometimes. I'm just trying to keep an eye on this. When there's a lot of objects on the screen, it does seem to slow down. Over the start-finish line, still in third despite crashing there. And sometimes the crashes are very forgiving, sometimes they're not. These twisty sections are also really fiddly. Once you memorise the track, it's okay. Of course, the tracks are so short, they're easy to memorise. So hang on. Oh, can I get to third? I'm third, just. I'm saying let's slow down and look at this. This is one of the levels with a lot of trackside objects, and it's gone down to a terrible frame rate, and making the game actually really difficult to control. And that's really irritating on the Amiga version, that slowdown. Over to the C64, a system not renowned for the best driving games, so interesting to see how this comes out. Programmed by Chris Butler, who did Space Harrier on the C64. Okay, right, well, let's hope it's better than that. And off we go. That colour scheme certainly reminds you of Space Harrier on the C64. But it's quite fast and smooth. And you get little gestures as you go past. These roller coaster sections don't quite work as well as perhaps they should. But the game's fast and it's responsive, although it's very, very easy to crash. But it's certainly trying to replicate the arcade. Perhaps Chris Butler learnt from his mistakes with Space Harrier, trying to be too over-ambitious. The speed's okay, and the handling's absolutely fine. But actually for a C64 game, it's nice and colourful as well. With the arcade machine has those eye-popping graphics, you can't replicate that on the C64 just due to the palette, but it's doing a good job here. So on lap 3, not seeing that much else traffic around, but that's because I'm in second and just the spread out of the general traffic on the road. So perhaps that's, there we go, there's one there, a back marker went past, and easy to get past him, not fiddly like it is on the ST and Amiga, where, as I say, it's more luck than judgment sometimes if you get past them. There we go, getting plenty of traffic now. I think that was just where I was on the track. There we go, got second. That's not too bad at all, quite enjoying this. So on to the next level. It's slow off the mark there, so I'm down to 10th. And here's one of the other levels, one of the roller coaster sections, so it's just blue on the side there. And yeah, it's always going to be limited, but you know what, this isn't bad at all. I'm quite enjoying myself playing this on the C64. Dare I say, this is the best C64 racing game I've played since Night Racer, which was episode 20 or 30 of ChinnyVision, which is a great Mastertronic racing game for the C64, which I recommend you check out. Also has Invader Load as well, which makes it an extra reason to check that game out if you've got the tape version. Overall on the C64, yes, I'm really enjoying this. It's quite good. And sticking with a different way of doing things on ChinnyVision today, let's go to the MSX version next. Even though I think we know what the result is going to be when we come to look at the Spectrum version. Nice selection screen, nice big graphics. Select your driver and then select your set of tracks, A, B, C, D or E. Third or better to continue. And yes, I think this is going to look the same on the Spectrum when we come to that, isn't it? But let's see how this moves. Off we go, and there's just engine noises, no music. Graphics are a little bit confusing because when the screen's busy, it's difficult to make out those cars in front of you, or indeed actually see your car. Remember, most people back in the day would have been playing this on basically a UHF connector on a portable TV, which would have been the greatest picture in the world. We're lucky today, we're playing this on RGB, which is the best picture quality you can get out of these machines. But I've got a feeling that some of these graphics may have been very indistinct when you have that, I want to say cobbled, but it wasn't cobbled background for the track. But let's go straight over to the Spectrum version because it's going to be the same, isn't it? And this is playing on my grey Spectrum Plus 2. I do like the Vector Powerdrift logo zooming around when you first load the game up. And great tune as well on the menu screen, very evocative. I think I got this game, it must have been Christmas 88 or 89. Possibly 88. In fact I didn't, because we ordered it and it didn't turn up until a bit later, so I got it after Christmas. That was on my CPC, so we'll come to that version in a little bit. And this selection screen is the same as the MSX. The MSX is going to be a port of the Spectrum version. And yes, it looks identical. But it does move far, far faster. But you're still going to have that problem of indistinct graphics. Look at these graphics now. Yes, clear if you're watching this on a modern display with RGB, and it's better now we're on the yellow section, but that would have been very, very indistinct. The game itself is incredibly fast and responsive, and the steering is extremely precise. It's quite fun. It's odd to think, I'm having played this a bit, this isn't held up in the same regards as games like Chase HQ. Perhaps it's the graphics on sections like this, but this is very, very playable. And there's plenty of information on the top of the screen there telling you your lap, your position, your speed, which stage you're on, and first, what position you're in, your score. And of course that has the side effect of keeping the game nice and fast because it's less for the Spectrum to update in the main window. On to lap 4, just hanging on here. I mean, they've avoided colour clash, which is really good by keeping these graphics to colour. But can we keep our first position and get to that start-finish line? There we go. You have to wait until the other players have caught up with you, so third place must have been quite a way behind. And this is one of the aerial levels, so you're actually up in the sky. I don't like this cobbled surface or the way it scales or the way it generally works. Once you're onto the main yellow roadway, it's absolutely fine, however. It's very precise, very enjoyable, and I'd recommend this one on the Specky. I'll just add a bit here, I've just been playing this a bit more, and it seems there's music when you drive as well. I don't know why. Earlier in the game when I've been playing it, there was no music. But if we look at this level, yes, I've got some Powerdrift music playing in the background, which is quite atmospheric and certainly adds to the game. That said, the music does highlight one thing, that when there's a lot going on the screen, the game does slow down, just like the Amiga and ST versions do, certainly the Amiga version did, which is not so apparent when you've just got sound effects on their own, but of course the Z80's doing everything, and when there's a lot going on, you can hear that music slow down, and when you actually start to look at it, yes, the frame rate slows down as well. So over to the CPC, and we also have the zooming around vector graphics. This is the game I originally had on floppy disk back in the late 80s. I think I'd probably seen the game in the arcade briefly, but I got this and Ghostbusters 2 that Christmas, which was another Activision game. Nice Mode 0 graphics on the Amstrad, 16 colours. You can pick all your characters, lots of definition and colour, and just immediately jumps out at you like the arcade does with all that colour. Who shall I choose? 1980s radio DJ? Mensky. Captain Flattop. Mr. T. My old geography teacher. Let's choose my old geography teacher. And then we choose a set of tracks. And we choose set of tracks B. Did a bit of loading on the Amstrad. This would be a nightmare on cassette, I expect. I suspect it's probably a multi-load. And lovely colourful graphics. There is no music, and it's not just a problem with the game like I had with my image on the Spectrum. On the Amstrad version, there's no music when you drive. But it's lovely and colourful, slowest frame rate than specky, but very, very playable and very, very precise. The cornering motion, or the cornering motion graphics are a little bit odd, but that doesn't detract from the game at all. Colours on this set of levels are a little bit loud, with that orange and yellow background. I think it's supposed to be desert, and they've given it this stripy look to give more of an impression of speed. Works quite well, just makes it look slightly garish. But I'm in second, and the status bar is the same as the Spectrum, and big colourful characters up at the top. Again, like the Spectrum version, it's odd to think this game isn't really held up in that high regard with games like Chase HQ, because it's one of the better racing games on the system. I think it probably doesn't have that long-term appeal that Chase HQ has, in that the levels are quite short, and yeah, you can go back and play a different set of levels, but you've pretty much seen it all very, very quickly because it's an arcade game. And of course the design of the thing originally is to give people short bursts of gameplay. Still holding my own in 2, it's lap 3 of 4 and stage 1 of 5. One more lap, and again, you know, this lap is 20 seconds, so quite quick to get around it. And the aerial sections work really well on the Amstrad, unlike the C64 where they're indistinct and the road just shoots up in the air. And the Spectrum, where you've got that rather muddled graphics, on the Amstrad it works incredibly well. We'll get past him. And there we go. And Eddie Shoestring has come 5th. I seem to remember I played this quite a lot on my CPC, and then again, it's not feeling a chore to play this today. It's a game I hadn't visited for many, many years. Not sure why, to be honest. Perhaps I thought I'd seen it all. But actually, you sit down with it and playing it, it's quite enjoyable. But again, as I say, nobody shouts about this game. No one praises it. No one really mentions it that much. There's always games like Continental Circus, Chase HQ, and WC Le Mans that people talk about all the time. Powerdrift, no, doesn't really get mentioned. Scaling on those things on the side of the road doesn't work at all. Don't overanalyse the roadside objects. The racing bit's fine, just some of the scaling's a bit off. Looking at Powerdrift across 6 systems, the ST, the Amiga, the C64, MSX, Sinclair Spectrum and Amstrad CPC. 16-bit versions, perhaps I was expecting a little bit more. I wasn't expecting the tilting thing from the arcade, but the frame rate at times is a little bit disappointing and overtaking is difficult. There's not much to choose between the ST and Amiga versions. How many times do I say that in these reviews? The Amiga version does have the black bar at the bottom, and it does have music when you are racing as well. On the 8-bit versions, the C64 was a real surprise, much faster and more precise and generally more fun than I was expecting. I'd go as far as to say it's one of the best racers on the system. MSX version is just a slower version of the Spectrum without the music. Perfectly playable, perfectly fine if you've got an MSX, but if you've got all of the systems, you're going to choose the Spectrum version, which is faster and just generally a little bit more fun and has the music as well, although goodness knows how I managed to activate it and then race without it to begin with. Amstrad CPC version, I think this is a really underrated game. I was playing this and just got sucked back into it. Suddenly I was back 10, 11 years old, playing this game as I was when I had it back in the late 80s and early 90s, because it's really good fun. It looks attractive, it moves fast. CPC Powerdrift doesn't feel like as much as an approximation as games like Space Harrier do on the CPC. It does have that retina melting quality of colour that the arcade version has. The steering is very precise and the game's fun. Powerdrift is a proto Mario Kart, and it's hard to believe the people behind Mario Kart hadn't played Powerdrift. On the 16-bit versions, it's a little bit of a letdown, but no matter what 8-bit system you have, you've got a pretty playable and enjoyable arcade racer on your system.